Ooh, what do we have here? Rolf Vector Comp wheels! Yeah, I have some questions from one of you guys. Yeah, you have questions, I have questions, I may have some answers. Well, let's review what we're going to do about these Rolf wheels and some insights on what Rolf is after this.
Welcome to I Know a Guy Bicycles, hanging out with a guy. Hi, I'm Justin the Guy. Obviously I have a garage shop. Take scary out of used, one bike at a time. If you want to be kept up to date on latest projects and topics, please like and subscribe.
Going to give you the 411 and a download on Rolf Wheels. Yep, Rolf Wheels was actually acquired by Trek in the 90s, and they did paired spoke system. Rolf Wheels is actually still around today, rebreathed new life in their own line of wheels, no longer affiliated with Trek. But these came on Treks, and this one's off of a Trek 5200, and it has a blue decaling, which they matched it. These are kind of cool. I have another video that I did review a Rolf Vector Comp wheels, just as such as these, and I got some questions after that. Nothing pertaining to the video specifically, but actually Rolf wheels. So what I'm going to do is going to put this in the truing stand. I've already checked the hubs. They're very smooth. I did initial cleaning in the sink and just get all the grime off. The next thing I'm going to do is clean the surface with the Hyper Clean from All Surface Clean from Lithium to actually prep the surface to add a ceramic coating to it. But without further ado, let's dive into this, and I'll talk about the questions as I'm proceeding to clean, inspect, and also true this wheel. So Rolf, yes, was part of Trek back in the day, and that was a good thing because they got some nice wheels. They actually switched gears. Not sure what happened to Rolf, but Bontrager took over the paired spoke, so I think Trek may have gotten the copyright on this guy and did its magic from there. So yes, it's basically a road wheel set. They also made mountain bike wheels as well, which was kind of cool. Yeah, so the paired spoke system is supposed to cut down to oscillation, that kind of thing. Are they still relevant today? Well, yes, they actually hold up really well. They're one of those things where they beefed up really good. When they went over to the Bontrager, they took away too much material on the rim, and they had some hairline cracks. They still made them for, I would say, about 5 or 6 years after Rolf left with a paired spoke system. So that being said, they actually had a good concept behind that. So much so that Shimano copied it, and they had their own paired spoke system as well. So yeah, that kind of carried through. So one of the questions was initially like these black spokes. Well, a lot of black spokes, when you do a degreaser or cleaning, sometimes they get kind of like a tarnish kind of look to them. A ceramic coating will work to bring that blackness back to it, or you can actually just put a little bit of lube on a rag and put a little bit of lube on the actual like chain lube, that kind of thing, onto the spoke to bring out that color. That's basically really what it is. These are actually a painted spoke on this particular ones, and if they get discolored and so forth, yeah, you can replace them, but if the spoke is still functional and working well, replacing them is probably not the best thing. So I'd look at the options of like a ceramic coating or some kind of a polish or wax even that bring that color back out. So Rolf wheels, they made these when the height of the 9-speed system. So that being said, this had Ultegra 9-speed componentry on it. Can you do other speeds was another question on this free hub body. This free hub body, you can do a 7-speed with a spacer, cassette. You can do an 8-speed cassette without a spacer, this with a 9-speed, and some of the 9-speeds did have their own little spacers, but that's just proprietary to the actual cassette. And then you have a 10-speed. 10 speeds will fit these free hub bodies. So if you wanted to upgrade this particular wheel set to a 10-speed system, you can. 11-speed, not so much the case because the spacing of the free hub body is not deep enough to accommodate that 11-speed or 11-speed free hub body. So this was the period where the Rolf ended is prior to 11 speeds coming out. So they didn't make a retrofit for these, unfortunately. The hub itself is probably a DT Swiss, but don't quote me on that. So it is, a Rolf, but they didn't make the hubs. They actually contracted that and the rims, of course. That's kind of how all manufacturing goes. But in this case, DT Swiss probably is what your match would be for a free hub body on this. And it's more of a standard free hub body, not like your Mavic wheels and so forth in that case. So yes, you can do those changes. And as the spacing here, the only thing you have to worry about for spacing is on the old 80s 7-speed frames. Everything from late 80s to 90s to almost current, except for the through axles, that's not going to work. But with the regular standard dropouts, it's a 135, I believe, millimeter spacing, which has been standard all along. So this wheel will work with a more modern frames. So that was another question to be addressed there. All right. All right, so I got the surface clean, inspected, and that's why I kind of go through and I look at all the eyelets. The issues with the Bontrager ones is the drive side where the cassette goes on. That had a higher tension spoke, and then that's where they developed hairline cracks around the spoke nipple eyelets, this area here. The reason why I'm going into this kind of detail on a frame, or on the wheels, that is you want to protect these. You know, the decals can get discolored. The paint and anodizing itself may turn to a little bit different coloring under sun. Using a ceramic coating does the protection of the UV protection of that, in addition to help shed off all of that extra gunk and stuff that when you roll through it, rain, mud, whatever, that kind of thing. Can be used for mountain bikes as well. So that's the kind of thing. So I'm looking at this, and first, before I do any kind of coating, I'm going to true the wheel. These are kind of a light and polite quarter turns. If you want to learn how to true wheels yourself, there's a plethora of videos out there to do so. I suggest going to a local bike shop, grabbing a couple wheels that are basically toast, and then you can probably pick those up for free from your shop. And then that case, you can actually play with them in a truing stand and get all those errors out of the way. And then you can kind of understand the perspective of side to side, up and down, hops and all that with those particular wheels. So this one's pretty straight and true. Also, the rim well is another thing to inspect. Make sure it has a flat surface. When there's a lot of braking involved, and from that surface from being flat will kind of concave inside, where that rim wall might get really thin if under a lot of abrasion. Mostly seen on mountain bikes with a lot of like grit and so forth, but sometimes I've seen them on road bike too, or heavy commuters, that kind of thing. And also you have to make sure the hub is adjusted and smooth first before you go to the true, because you don't want to muff it up going another direction. All right, so we got ourselves a true wheel. The rim's been clean, inspected, ready to go. So with ceramic slam, I like to use, you can use different kinds of ceramics, but I have a ceramic slam from lithium. I like to use these kind of pads because they're very pliable. I use them for the frames too. As a matter of fact, I just finished detailing the frame with this ceramic coating, so I'm diving right into this because the pad's already saturated with the ceramic slam, so kind of utilizing as much. A bottle of this will last you, according to the company, around 8 cars worth. So for bikes, I'm on my 30 plus bike wheels and parts. I still have some left in the bottle, so it'll go a long ways and not really too expensive, and you're protecting a lot of your parts. So initially you basically put a little bit on the pad itself. I just do put a couple squirts there, and then I just lightly go over the whole rim on both sides, kind of give it a nice coat, then I start flossing. That's why I have a pad that's pliable, so I can start doing the diving into in between the spokes kind of thing, and getting a kind of a, you see a light sheen to it, and that'll dry to a dullness, and it takes about 5 minutes to 10 minutes for it to dry. Then you can let it cure for another, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours, and apply what they call stacking. Add another layer to it. That just gives you added protection. I wouldn't suggest going over more than 3 stacks. I usually just do 2 stacks on most of everything I'm doing. And yes, I'm doing the spokes as well, because like I mentioned before, it'll bring out the color of the blackness of these particular spokes. And if you have like a fancy bike that has colored spokes and so forth, this would be great for it too. Now I'll kind of protect them and shed any of that extra gunk. Here's the reason why I like the pliable ones. applicators, because I can just kind of floss this in the middle, and that's going to get that internal hub. That's going to help rinse off all that gunk when you get buildup of grease and dirt and grime. When you after those big rides or what have you over time, and need to really wash your bike down and get the outside kind of there. So I did that once, and I usually like to do it over twice, and that's what I consider one stack. Reason being is going over the second time will enable me to catch any of those little parts I may have missed, or if my applicator got a little less more dry per se, with less material, less ceramic coating on there. Now, therefore, I can make sure it's a good coating. This will really beat up and shed all that material and so forth. But again, also it's protection of the paint. You can see it's really bringing out that shine of the blue rim and so forth. And the decaling on these are really in immaculate shape, so I want to protect those. I've had some Rolf wheels where the decals are all just muffed up, and you just have to kind of take them off and clean them up and clean all the goo and gunk off of there. Also, another little tidbit is this little Zach sticker. They used to use a specific spoke prep on these, which they were trying to push under the Trek umbrella. And the first batch of it was so thick or so strong that basically seized the spoke nipples. This is a newer version, so it's less likely to do that. But just a little sidebar note of faux pas of the industry back in the 90s. This is the early 2000s, and this is right before it switched over to the Bontrager paired spoke systems. And these things are solid workhorses if found in good condition. And what I mean by good condition is hasn't been ran over, hasn't been crashed, major ding. Seen any of my videos, you'll see one right up here that's had a nice little dinger in it, so the rim is toast, which I was very, very upset about. But in any case, this guy is in real good form. So basically you let that dry. It takes 5 minutes or so for it to dry, to up to 4 hours to completely cure. I suggest doing this like a day before your ride. Just don't go out and ride on it right away. I mean, you can, but it's one of those things you want to do that. But after that is cured, well, we'll give it a few minutes and find my coffee. As a curing, I'll go over a couple of other questions that you may have had out there. Well, are these still really good wheels? Yeah, they are really good wheels. They hold up really well. They stay, you can see, really true. This is where the industry kind of changed the wheels being pretty much true and solid out of the box versus always have to true them and double checking everything. So this is where now today's wheels, when they come out of the box, barring damage from shipping, they're pretty much solid and ready to go. So you have a good dish on them. These were also built up as the rim, like I mentioned, was a little bit stronger. Therefore, it can handle the higher tension spokes. That's the idea, is taking out some spokes and higher tension. And lo and behold, nowadays they've went to less spokes, but not more back to the radial ace. The idea on these was supposed to keep it from oscillation at faster speeds, and kind of a coolness factor and that kind of thing. They used Rolf wheels on all the Trek lines at the time, which was not just Trek bikes. You had Kleins, Le Mans, Gary Fisher's, and Bontragers-ish. Well, when the Bontrager bikes came out, Bontrager had its own rims, but and the kind of thing. But they did have a Rolf version of this, and the Rolf wheels, mountain bike ones on the Kleins were kind of cool. I think I have a set of those somewhere I need to clean up and repurpose. But anywho, pretty. They had different models. They had 2 or 3 different models. The lighter ones are super lightweight, and the newer versions are really kind of cool looking as well in that case. So yeah, so you can take your old bike and retrofit it up to a 10-speed system fairly easily, and there's those componentry out there as long as they're rim well. And these are pretty strong, so I haven't seen any of these convex or concave, whatever the case may be, from wear and tear. This does have obviously a little bit on there, but as you notice that it's kind of drying and has a little bit of a dullness to it. This has kind of a matte finish anyway as a coating, as a kind of an anodizing, but you'll notice when I start swiping it, it's going to have kind of a more of a sheen or shine to it. And that first swipe has more of a tack feel, then all of a sudden it's going to feel super smooth. and oh boy, it's super smooth. Will this increase your aerodynamics? I'm sure, why not? But I got a lot of aerodynamics to avoid to begin with, and then just do some flossing. So yes, this will cure in about 4 hours and be like super strong, and it'll automatically beat up water and gunk right off the bat, so you get that extra protection and coating of that. And I do, floss the spokes. Oh yeah, super silky smooth. So yeah, that's what's really cool about this. And there's one last trick I want to show you after doing any kind of ceramic of rims. And you can use different brands I mentioned before. Start off where the Presta valve is and get these spokes on this side here. Well, yeah, this makes your wheels super cool looking, smooth, aerodynamic kind of thing. Have a nice gloss, some protection of UV and that kind of thing. But quite honestly, do you want that on your rim brake? Yeah, probably not. So to remove that within this first stage, it's not completely cured. I take basically a cloth here and a little bit of rubbing alcohol. This is all you really need. Just put a little bit on on your paper towel here and just kind of fold it where it's only going to contact the rim brake area, which is this here, and then just wipe off the excess. What that does is, well, cleans your rim brake surface even more than it has been, obviously, because there's still dirt on there. But it also removes that ceramic coating, so that gives you the better braking surface possible. I'm going to do both sides. And on the brake pads themselves, what I like to do is kind of take a little sandpaper and clean off the surface so they're flush. So you have a brake pad similar to this, right? I just take a little bit of sandpaper and clean that up so you have a better tack to it. And these also harden over time as well. So you want to make sure you have that good contact. And that'll give you a good few rides of very good braking power. And also if you get those contaminants out, like dirt pieces, metal shavings, what have you, from road riding or mountain biking, what have you, that'll prevent scarring into the actual rim bed and preventing any additional damage to that braking surface. So that's a little side note there as prevention, that kind of thing. So you can see by just wiping this off, get you all that dirt off. And now, well, for the tires, I like to add a little something to the tire itself. Usually use Armor All. And I found this stuff. This is new, so I'm going to give this a good old college try. And obviously I prepped everything. I'm not going to spray the wheel itself, but I'm going to spray it in my rag. I usually do this anyway. Kind of give it a good little puddle in my rag. And then I just roll it smooth. And what this is going to do is kind of give that tire a little UV protection. You can also use ceramic slam on rubber parts as well, but I wanted something that's a little specific for tires, and this has Tire Shine Extreme. So the not so extreme was only about $1 cheaper, so I figured I'd try the extreme and give it a whirl. So look at that tire, looking almost like new. These tires are fairly old, but they do not have any dry rot per se, and on top of that there's a minimal arcness flattening to it, so you still have your arc there, so these tires still have some life on them. This individual is doing the MS150, and this is a great run of training tires, and when it comes to the event, maybe a week or two before the event, get a new set of tires if you're going to put that many miles onto it. But right out of the gate, you still will, I would say 500, maybe 600 miles still, depending obviously where you ride and what kind of terrain that you're dealing with. Chip seal or really rough roads, or if you do take your road bike on gravel, that kind of thing will kind of eat away at those tires and so forth. So there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, 101 on cleaning the rim, giving it a ceramic coating, polishing off, treating the rim for protection, in addition to cleaning the brake surface off, making sure it's prepared, and also treating the tire. So this is all we do. Wow, that's a mouthful. All on just the wheel itself. Then we got to repeat that on the front one. The front one doesn't have the cassette portion of it, but in that case, anyway, that's your answering questions 101 on Rolf wheels. And you know, that does carry over, a lot of them, to a lot of different wheels out there. Talking about the 9-speed freehub body, we'll do a 10-speed or 8-speed or 7-speed with a spacer. Just be careful when you're looking at a 7-speed. Sometimes those frames are a little bit skinnier in the dropouts, but this even will fit technically a frame that does have 11-speed on it because it has that 135 mil in the back to fit those dropouts, that kind of deal. And when I put the cassette back on, I put grease on the free hub body. I like to do that to prevent any kind of rust and contaminant in there. Also the skewer itself, I like to put a little bit of grease on the skewer to prevent any kind of rust as well. In any case, well, that's Wheels 101 on Trek Vector Comp Rolf wheels. Oh, that's a mouthful to say. Information and what I use is in the description below. If you have any tips and tricks that you do to your wheels when you do truing and so forth, or anything, please feel free to put comments below. Thanks for hanging out with me in the garage, and check out the bike in its full completion after this. Oh, thank you for hanging out with me. And if it's nice in your neighborhood, go for a ride. Get these wheels back on the bike and go. Go. Use that flappy ponytail. Pew! Until next time, from the garage.